Good evening, boils and ghouls. Dr. Death here again, back from the shadows to bring you another tale from the frozen abyss of fear. Only on Sinister Media HD. Tonight's story is not for the faint of heart. It takes place in the dead of winter, when the snow piles high and the world turns quiet. Too quiet. But listen closely, and you might hear it. The creaking on the roof. The scratching at the window. The heavy, wet breathing just above your head. Because this time, the monster doesn't stalk the forest floor. It walks the rooftops. So lock your doors, douse the lights, and whatever you do, don't look up. This is The Farmhouse in Winter.
Chapter 1. The Storm. David Halpern peered through frost-rimmed windows at the darkening sky. "It's coming faster than they predicted," he muttered, pulling the curtains closed. Laura nodded, checking the emergency supplies spread across their kitchen table. Flashlights, batteries, canned food. "We should be fine for a few days if needed." Their farmhouse creaked in protest as the first powerful gusts battered the aging structure. Situated 3 miles from the nearest neighbor, the Halperns had weathered many storms here. But something about this one felt different. "Mom, the internet's down," Ben called from the living room, his teenage irritation evident. "And my phone has no signal." "The radio's just static too," Laura replied, twisting the dial uselessly before switching it off. Upstairs, Ellie sat on her window seat, small palms pressed against the glass, mesmerized by snow swirling like dancing ghosts in the beam of the porch light. The wind screamed around the eaves, a sound like something alive and hungry. That's when she saw it. A massive shadow moving between the pines at the edge of their property. Not shifting with the wind, but deliberate, purposeful. "Dad," she shrieked, tumbling down the stairs. "There's something out there." David caught her at the bottom step. "Whoa, sweetheart. Just the storm playing tricks." "No. It was big, bigger than our car, moving between the trees." Ben rolled his eyes. "It's just branches blowing around. Squirt." "I know what I saw," Ellie insisted, her voice quavering. The lights flickered once, twice, then plunged the farmhouse into darkness. "Perfect timing," Laura sighed, reaching for the flashlight. David struck a match, lighting the kerosene lamp. In its wavering glow, Ellie's face was pale with fear. "Nothing's out there," he assured her, but his eyes drifted to the windows, where the storm raged with unnatural fury. "Nothing at all." The farmhouse timbers groaned as something in the distance let out a sound that might have been the wind, or might have been something else entirely. Chapter 2. Scratches in the snow. Dawn broke with an eerie silence. The storm had ceased its howling, leaving behind a world transformed, pristine white blanketing everything in sight. The Halpern farmhouse stood like an island in a frozen sea, snowdrifts piled nearly to the windowsills. "Generators fried," David announced, stomping snow from his boots in the mudroom. His breath hung visible in the frigid air. "Something in the wiring. We'll have to make do with the fireplace." Ben groaned, huddled in his sleeping bag on the couch. "No heat, no Wi-Fi? We're going to freeze to death from boredom." Laura stood at the kitchen window, coffee mug clutched between her hands, staring intently at something outside. Without a word, she set down her mug and pulled on her coat. "Where are you going?" David called after her. She didn't answer, drawn outside by what she had seen. The snow around their house wasn't pristine after all. It was marked, deeply. Laura circled the perimeter slowly, her heart pounding as she followed the trail that encircled their home like a predator stalking its prey. When David found her, she was kneeling beside one of the impressions, her face drained of color. "Probably just a wolf," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "They get desperate in storms like this." Laura looked up at him. "Have you ever seen wolf tracks this deep? This wide?" Her gloved finger traced the outline. "Look at the shape, David. It's almost human." That night, they huddled together in the living room, firelight casting long shadows as they tried to play board games with trembling hands. Ellie kept glancing at the ceiling, as if she could see through it to the star-filled sky beyond. "What's that?" she whispered suddenly. They all froze, straining to hear. Soft at first, then unmistakable, the sound of heavy footsteps crunching across the roof, deliberate and slow. Not the scurrying of a small animal. Not branches scraping in the wind. Something large. Something walking. Something that paused directly above them, as if listening. The ceiling creaked under its weight. Chapter 3: The Thing in the Trees. Morning light brought false courage. The sounds from the roof had eventually stopped, and David insisted it must have been ice sliding off the shingles. "I don't care what Dad says," Ben muttered, digging through a box of old electronics in his bedroom. Something was up there. He emerged triumphant, holding his old camcorder, a relic from middle school projects, but still functional. "What are you doing?" Laura asked as Ben positioned the device on the living room windowsill, angling it toward the trees. "Setting a trap," he replied, voice steady despite his trembling hands. "If something's out there, I want proof." The family spent another tense day playing cards by firelight, rationing their food, waiting for help that couldn't reach them through the buried roads. As darkness fell, they huddled closer together, listening to the wind's mournful whistle. Around midnight, Ben checked the camcorder. "Battery's still good," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. By dawn, the device's red light had gone dark. Ben retrieved it, hands clumsy with anticipation and fear. "Probably just recorded 6 hours of nothing," David said, but he leaned in with the others as Ben rewound the tape. The grainy footage showed little at first, just darkness, occasional snowflakes drifting past the lens. Then movement. Something enormous leapt from the peak of the Andersons' abandoned barn to the old grain silo almost 50 yards away, a distance impossible for any human to jump, executed with the fluid grace no ordinary animal possessed. "Pause it," Ellie cried, pointing at the screen. "There, yellow eyes." Ben froze the frame. In the static-filled image, 2 glowing pinpricks stared back at them. "It's a big man-wolf," Ellie whispered. "I told you." David shook his head, but Laura placed a protective arm around her daughter. "What if she's right?" Laura asked, her voice barely audible. Outside, fresh prints circled the house, deeper than before. Inside, the camcorder's evidence flickered, indisputable and impossible. Chapter 4: Roofwalker. The third night brought no sleep, only terror. It started with gentle taps against the kitchen window, tentative, like raindrops. Then scraping along the siding, deliberate strokes that left pale gouges in the wood. The family huddled in the living room, listening as the creatures circled their sanctuary. "It's testing us," David whispered, clutching the fireplace poker, looking for a way in. A thud against the back door made them all jump. The knob rattled, not turned, but nudged, as if by something that didn't quite understand how doors worked, but was determined to learn. Laura held Ellie close, the child's face buried against her shoulder. "What does it want?" she breathed. No one answered. No one knew. Dawn brought a brief reprieve. David ventured outside to check the generator again. A pretext. They all knew he was really assessing the damage. He returned ashen-faced. "The entire roof," he said, voice hollow. "Covered in tracks. Heavy ones. Like it spent hours up there, pacing." Ben hadn't spoken since sunrise. He sat at the window, eyes fixed on the tree line, jumping at every swaying branch. "Ben." Laura touched his shoulder gently. "You need to rest." He flinched away. "I can't sleep. Not after last night." "What happened last night?" David asked. Ben's voice cracked. "It was at my window. All night. Just standing there. Watching me." His fingers trembled as he traced a shape on the glass. I could see its breath fogging the pain. Yellow eyes, never blinking. "It knows we're watching it now." Laura exchanged a glance with David. The certainty in Ben's voice, the flat, emotionless way he described the horror, frightened her more than his words. As darkness fell again, they dragged furniture against the doors. David distributed makeshift weapons, kitchen knives, heavy flashlights, a hammer. "Someone needs to stay awake," he said. "We'll take shifts." But as shadows lengthened across the walls, they all knew the truth. It didn't matter if they were awake or asleep. The Roofwalker was patient, and it wasn't going away. Chapter 5: The Old Journal. The flashlight beam cut through cobwebs as David hunted through the attic. The batteries in their emergency radio had finally died, and he remembered a stash of D-cells somewhere among the forgotten treasures above. "Come on," he muttered, shifting a heavy trunk. Dust motes danced in the narrow light. Behind the trunk sat a cardboard box he didn't recognize, its corners softened with age. O'Malley's was scrawled across the side, the family who'd owned the farmhouse before them. Curiosity pulled him forward. Inside lay mundane relics, faded photographs, Christmas ornaments, a child's drawing of stick figures beside a house. At the bottom, wrapped in a discolored cloth, he found a leather-bound journal. Its pages were warped, the edges tinged with black mold. David almost set it aside, but a single word caught his eye: rooftops. Heart racing, he carefully opened the brittle pages. The handwriting was cramped, desperate. Dated entries from January 1971 chronicled a winter storm much like their own. The writer, James O'Malley, David presumed, described increasingly strange occurrences. February 3rd, 1971, the snow won't stop. Third day without power. Martha thinks it's a bear, but I've seen what it leaves behind. No bear makes tracks like these. David turned the page, hands trembling. February 7th, one by one, the houses went dark. Thompson's place first, then the Williams farm. No one's seen either family. It walks the rooftops at night. It never stays long. It never leaves tracks leading away. The final entry chilled David's blood. February 10th, it knows we're here. I hear it testing the doors. Martha says I'm scaring the children with these stories. I've hidden this journal where she won't find it. If someone reads this someday, leave this place. It waits until you have nowhere to go. Then it. The entry ended abruptly, a long ink streak trailing off the page. From below, Laura called his name. David, did you find the batteries? He stared at the journal, then at the stairs leading down to his family. David, coming, he answered, tucking the journal into his jacket. I found something else too. Chapter 6, The Descent. David jerked awake, the journal sliding from his lap to the floor. He'd fallen asleep in the armchair, determined to keep watch. Pale morning light filtered through the curtains. Something felt wrong. Laura, he called, voice rough with sleep. The house answered with silence. He rose, muscles stiff. Laura, louder this time. Ben emerged from his room, hair disheveled. Where's Mom? A cold dread settled in David's stomach. He took the stairs two at a time, Ben close behind. The upper hallway was empty, but not clean. A dark smear marred the floral wallpaper, glistening wetly in the dim light. Blood. Mom, Ben screamed, pushing past David to check the master bedroom. MOM. David couldn't move, transfixed by the trail of crimson droplets leading from their bedroom door to the wall beneath the attic access. Deep gouges scarred the wood paneling, claw marks raking upward, as if something had climbed the wall. The attic door hung open, its cords swinging gently. Ben returned, face ashen. She's not there. Her side of the bed is. He swallowed hard. There's blood on the sheets. David forced himself to breathe. Get the flashlight, he whispered. Minutes later, they pulled themselves up through the attic entrance. The beam from Ben's flashlight cut through dust-filled air, illuminating the cluttered space. The trunk David had moved yesterday was overturned, its contents scattered. Near the fallen O'Malley box lay a torn scrap of fabric, blue wool with a fringe. That's Mom's scarf, Ben's voice cracked. The one Grandma made her. The flashlight followed a trail of dark droplets across the wooden floor, weaving between forgotten furniture and boxes of Christmas decorations. The path led to the far wall, then up, toward the small trapdoor built into the roof. It stood open, night air and snowflakes drifting down through the rectangular hole. That doesn't open from inside, David whispered. I tried it years ago when we first moved in. It's bolted from the outside. Ben's flashlight trembled, catching the gleam of fresh claw marks around the frame. Something took her out that way, he said, voice hollow with disbelief. From downstairs, they heard Ellie scream. Chapter 7, Tooth and Nail. We can't just wait for it to pick us off. David's voice was steel as he pulled his hunting rifle from the locked cabinet. The weapon hadn't been fired in years, but he loaded it with practiced hands. Ben nodded grimly, testing the weight of the fireplace poker. Ellie stays locked in the basement storage room. It's the only space without windows. The little girl clutched her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide with terror. What about Mom? David knelt before his daughter. We're going to find her. I promise. The blizzard had returned with renewed fury, snow whipping sideways past the windows. Visibility was near zero, perfect cover for what they planned to do. It responds to sound, Ben said, recalling the way it had investigated their movements. We can use that. Their plan was desperate but simple. David would circle to the barn while Ben created a distraction. Once the creature was inside investigating, they'd trap it. It understands doors, David warned. Be ready for anything. Ben hugged Ellie tightly before securing her in the windowless storage room with emergency supplies and clear instructions. Don't open this door for anyone but us. Outside, the cold hit like a physical blow. Ben trudged through knee-deep snow toward the woodpile, deliberately making noise. David crept along the side of the house, toward the barn, rifle ready. Minutes passed. Ben knocked over a stack of firewood, the clatter barely audible above the howling wind. He saw movement, a shadow detaching from the tree-line, moving with impossible speed. "It's coming," he shouted into his walkie-talkie. No response. The barn door stood open, swinging in the wind. Ben sprinted toward it, heart pounding. "Dad!" The beam of his flashlight caught a rifle lying in the snow. Beyond it, a trail of dark droplets led away from the barn, alongside massive, clawed prints and a long drag mark. "Dad!" Ben screamed into the storm. From behind, hot breath steamed against his neck. He whirled, poker raised, but too late. The yellow eyes that had haunted them for days were inches from his own, set in a face that was almost human, yet terribly wrong. It smiled, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. Ben's scream was lost in the howling wind. Chapter 8. The roof is next. Ben couldn't remember how he escaped. His mind held only fragments. Yellow eyes, slashing claws, then running. Ellie's small hand clutched in his as they stumbled through the blinding snow. Somehow, they had made it to the Andersons' place, the closest neighbor nearly a mile away. The house stood dark and silent. The Andersons had left for Florida weeks ago, a fact Ben was now pathetically grateful for. "Are Mom and Dad here?" Ellie asked, shivering in her hastily grabbed coat. Ben couldn't meet her eyes. "Not yet. They'll find us." The lie tasted bitter. A quick circuit of the house revealed a broken window in the back. Easy entry. Inside, Ben immediately began gathering furniture, pushing bookcases against doors, appending tables against windows. "What are you doing?" Ellie asked, hugging herself in the cold darkness. "Making it safe," Ben replied, though he knew better. No place was safe anymore. He found a shotgun mounted above the Andersons' fireplace, decorative but loaded. Mr. Anderson had always been paranoid about break-ins. Ben had never fired a gun before, but his hands seemed to know what to do. While Ellie slept fitfully on the couch, wrapped in blankets pulled from upstairs bedrooms, Ben climbed into the attic with a flashlight. The beam revealed what he feared most, a wooden hatch in the ceiling, identical to the one in their own home. Worse, when he shined the light through a small vent to the outside, he saw them. Fresh claw marks circling the rooftop, as if something had been pacing, testing, waiting. It already knew they were here. Night fell with brutal swiftness. Ben sat beside Ellie on the couch, shotgun across his knees, listening to the wind. The little girl had finally stopped asking about their parents. "It's going to find us, isn't it?" she whispered. Before Ben could answer, they heard it, the now familiar sound of something heavy moving across the roof. Deliberate footsteps, pausing occasionally as if sniffing the air. Ben pulled Ellie close, aiming the shotgun at the ceiling. "It's okay," he lied. "We're going to be okay." Outside in the snow, their footprints leading to the Anderson house remained clearly visible in the moonlight. There are no tracks leading away.
And there you have it, dear listeners. A tale colder than the grave and darker than a new moon night. The farmhouse is silent now. The Halperns are gone. But the rooftops still whisper with fresh snow and fresh blood. If you ever find yourself stranded during a snowstorm, look up before you look out. Because if the footprints lead to your roof, you're already too late. Until next time, this is Dr. Death signing off from Sinister Media HD, reminding you that in the world of shadows, the real monsters don't knock at your door. They leap down from above. Pleasant screams, and good night.